All right, final project. Now, if you'd like to work in pairs, have one of the two members accept the Google Classroom assignment, and then let me know, and I can add access so you can both make changes to that same repository. It's going to take a little bit of coordination to make sure you're not both changing the same file at the same time. But essentially, before you start, you click this fetch button to make sure that if your partner made any changes, you go and grab those changes first, then you go make your changes. If you don't do it in the right order, it can get confused. It's really hard to lose stuff once you have a commit, but it's possible to screw things up, and it takes a little bit of sorting out sometimes. Okay, let's commit and push. We got that. So this is our final project. Bad adventure game. Due December 20th. Wow, we're looking into December 20th already. This will be 40 points total. I got to put the rubric together for you in a minute. Let's put this in the final projects category. And here we go. All right, so we are building a little December 20th, 10 a.m. So if you've been remote, I'll need you to join a Zoom meeting the 10th. We can all take turns sharing screen. So to play our game, essentially you'll just demonstrate that all of the things on the rubric can work in your game. It's maybe 5 minutes per group or partner or individual. It's relatively painless. Everyone does it, so we all get to commiserate with each other. I know presenting is hard for some people, but it takes practice, and you'll get more comfortable with it the more you practice it, so I promise. All right, so we're going to build a pretend adventure game now with a GUI. So we're going to have a 2D array or array list of rooms, so about 10 by 10 or larger. Right? So when we talked about arrays or array lists, I believe we mentioned you can have an array of arrays, an array list of array lists. So what that looks like then, come on, Word. I love they're like trying to use dark mode, but then like you open a document and it's all white inside. So, oh, it's not. Okay, Excel is all white inside. Excel looks like this, and it's like super bright in dark mode. Word here, look at that. How cool is that? That's super exciting. I love dark mode. Anyway, so an array of arrays, or array list of array lists here, right, is an array for each row here. And inside of, so this is one big array or array list with all these rows inside of it. Okay, so this is row 0. This is row index 1, row index 2. That's terrible writing here. Row 0. So 0, 0 again is top left. So inside of this, then we have indexes like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then this is row 0, and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inside of row number 1, row number 2 gets the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if we did a row 3, same thing. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So essentially what you're getting here then is a grid. Right? You can imagine rows and columns. So to reference any of these locations, it's row number, column number. So this one over here is 3, 5. It'd be my grid, index of 3, index of 5. That sort of thing. Or if it's an array list, you'd get the index, get3.get5. We'll give you this. We can talk more about this. Don't stress about making this little 2D map here. And we just hard code in a map. It doesn't need to be randomly generated. If you want to make it randomly generated, great. That's sort of fun too. We can take a look at some of that. So then we'll make a room. So we're going to have a room class that knows its location and knows whether or not it's blocked. So the idea, like when you're in the maze, you can go north, you can go west, you can go east, or you can go south. And maybe one of these rooms you'll just say, hey, it's blocked off, I'm not going to put anything in it, you can't go there. So if their room is blocked, don't let them go east. If they're at the bottom here, if they're at the last row, don't let them go south because there is no south to go. Right? We're essentially building this little grid for them to navigate around in the game. And we're going to drop them in to start at 0, 0, and they can only go east and south, essentially. And they get to navigate around this map. So the idea is they just want to collect as much gold as they can. I'm a giant nerd. I play Dungeons and Dragons. My kids are actually into it, which is really fun. My wife hates the game, though. It's not her cup of tea. There's going to be an NPC, a non-player character, possibly in that room, and then an amount of gold that you can find inside of that room. Our player characters, as a class here, we're going to have hit points. We're going to start with 20 hit points. If you run out of hit points, you die. Game over. You're going to have strength, dexterity, and intelligence. So we're going to have 3 different statistics here that will determine other things in the game. And now 3 rolls of a 6-sided die means you're going to pick a random number 1 to 6 3 times and add them together. So the possible values are between 3 and 18. That does not mean a random number between 3 and 18. Right? The statistics and the odds are different of rolling a 6-sided die 3 times and adding it together than picking a random number within that range. Right? Take the stats class. I don't need to prove that to you right now. And players will also track the amount of gold that they have. So the idea is we want to have the most gold to win the game. There's no real winning, but that's fine. So in a room, we're going to have a 1 in 2 chance of encountering an NPC to fight or run away from. If there's no NPC, or if we've killed it, we can search the room for gold, or we can sleep in the room. Our non-player characters, these NPCs, will have hit points between 1 and 6. So they're puny compared to us. Right? We should be able to beat them up pretty easily. And then whatever that 1 through 6 number is, multiply it by 2 to get their strength, dexterity, and intelligence. So like a 1 hit point monster is 2 strength, 2 dexterity, 2 intelligence. If you'd rather do it differently with other random values, that's cool too. Totally up to you. I'm very open to this being adapted to whatever you think might be more interesting, as long as you're keeping this basic framework. So if you want to tweak any of these numbers, perfectly open to that, but it needs to have the same general form. So when we look at the rubric in a little while, I'll show you. You still have to hit all these things here, but you're welcome to change these values if you want to make it different. When you search the room, you'll essentially roll a 20-sided die, pick a random number 1 to 20. If you get a value that's less than your intelligence score, you find the gold in the room. So the higher your intelligence is, the more chances you have to get less than that value. Right? You'll pick some random amount of gold in the code, set that in the room. Right? The room class will track that. So when you make a room, you can pick a random value for it. Great. It'll have, okay, this one has 23 pieces of gold, that sort of thing. And we'll add that to our player's gold stash. Okay? When you fight a monster or an NPC, you roll your 20-sided die, pick a random number 1 to 20. If you get greater than their dexterity value, we hit. So monsters are generally pretty easy to hit. Like if their dexterity is 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 or 12, all you need to do is get higher than that value. So 50% chance to hit all the monsters with 5 hit points and less. It's not so bad to hit these. Then if you do hit, they take your strength divided by 3 damage. You reduce the NPC's hit points by that value. Whatever your strength is, divided by 3 as an integer. Right? We don't need to do doubles or anything. Reduce their hit points. And then if they're still alive, meaning they have more than 0 hit points, they get a chance to attack us. Same rules, but in reverse. Right? So they have to get greater than our dexterity on a 20-sided die, or 1 to 20. And then we're going to say there's a minimum of 1 damage, because the monster with a 1 hit point with 2 strength would never deal any damage. So we're going to say minimum of 1 for the damage here. And that's really the only one that it affects. Monsters with 4 hit strength would still do 1. Monsters with 6 strength would do 2, and working its way up there. And this just keeps on happening, right? We could keep on fighting until it's dead, or we could run away. So when we run away, it gets to make an attack. If it sees us run away, this is terrible, but it's fine. You roll the 20-sided die. If it gets less than its intelligence score, it notices us running away. When you go to run away, feel free to do whatever is easy. You can go to a previous room. You can pick a random direction. You can let them pick which way they want to run away. Whatever you opt for. I'm not too concerned about how this works, so just pick something and go with it. Whatever sounds like fun. And then sleep. When you sleep, you regain all of your hit points magically, thanks to the rest mechanic in D&D 5th edition. It's not all that realistic, but that's okay. We have to have something so that you can keep playing, right? If you're stay injured forever, no one's ever going to want to fight. But there's a 1 in 6 chance that an NPC will wander into the room while we're sleeping and start fighting us. So 1 in 6 out of times when we sleep, a new monster shows up and starts attacking us, and we get to then either fight it or run away from it. We got to start that sequence over again. So you can't sleep if there's a monster in there, and you can't search the room for gold if there's a monster there, right? You have to either kill it or run away from it and find an empty room to sleep or search. And the game just keeps on going forever or until the player dies. Again, it'd be nice to have some sort of gold tracking in a file somewhere, but that's we probably don't need any more features other than this. It's still your very first programming course. So this will be a relatively basic game. Doesn't need to be anything super interesting, but it's something we can kind of get into that's more interesting than building a little ice cream shop store that, hey, do you want to add sprinkles or do you want to add marshmallow fluff to your ice cream cone? That sort of nonsense. So we'll do one of those examples when we come back from break. You can look at how we can integrate classes into our code, because it's a lot of fun, and you get some good stuff there. Okay? All right. Questions, thoughts, concerns? it's a lot, right? There's lots of pieces to it. We have to build classes for rooms, for players. Your non-player character is probably also a class, right? Because we want to group all these things together, interact with them as objects. And then we've got options we can interact with. So we're going to have a bunch of buttons all over the screen for different buttons, things we can do, ways to navigate, buttons for searching and fighting and sleeping. I'll show you how you can turn buttons on and off. You can do all sorts of fun stuff with it to, again, help players or help users not do dumb things. Right? So if you're not allowed to search the room if there's a monster present, we can just turn off the button so you can't actually click the button, that sort of thing. Okay? We need an online, just a text submission. So you're going to give your feedback pull request along with a self-assessment using the rubric. I'll post the rubric in a little while. Actually, probably when we get back from break, because we'll talk about it in class. We can do that. And we can go from there. So that's the final project. Again, hopefully you're done with project 4. You can get started, at least start thinking about it, planning out what it might look like. We've got lots of time, but please, 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 please don't wait until the last week. This is big enough that if you wait until the last week, you will not finish, and it is 40% of your grade. And if it's not finished, things will not go well. There's still partial points, right, just like all the other projects, but there's a lot of things to accomplish. So please don't wait till the last week. Don't forget, we do have study group tomorrow, right, on Thursday with Mr. Tim. And we don't have study group Thanksgiving week. I got to pull those out of the calendar. No study group those weeks, especially not on Thanksgiving Day. And we'll go from there. All right, any other thoughts, questions, concerns? I think we're in pretty good shape. So we'll come back Monday after Thanksgiving, do some more examples here from essentially the textbook. Again, we're skipping the textbook hard way, and we're going to use Scene Builder for everything. Because dragging and dropping is just so much nicer. There's nothing that says you can't do this by hand, though, right? And some people do, right? And you just go type all this stuff in. It looks like gibberish until you've seen it before. And so I'm a big fan of copy pasting. So if you've seen one before, you can copy paste into another. But again, we can just use Scene Builder. Makes life easy for us, okay? All right, we got everything committed here. I think we're good to go. You folks have a wonderful Thanksgiving break. Hopefully you get some sort of fun meal there. Heard turkeys might be hard to find. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't actually bothered to look yet. Most of my kids don't like turkey, so it's not really our Thanksgiving thing. We'll go from there. All right, thanks everybody.